If you're heavy-hearted right now and carrying something that you can't really talk about, but you don't want to be alone, I'm here for you. I'm gonna read to you while you hold yourself a little tighter. And if you're up for it, let me know what comforting beverage it is that you're having. I'm having vanilla and caramel flavored rooibos tea tonight. Okay, we're reading Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Pop and Mom and Sis, and then I broke down. He says, "Oh, dang it now, don't take on so. We all has to have our troubles, and this'll come out all right. What's the matter with them?" There, are you the watchman of the boat?" "Yes," he says, kind of pretty well satisfied like. "I'm the captain and the owner and the mate and the pilot and the watchman and head deckhand, and sometimes I'm the freight and passengers. I ain't as rich as old Tom Hornback, but I can't be so blamed generous and good to Tom, Dick, and Harry as what he is, and slam around money the way he does. But I've told him a many time I wouldn't trade places with him, for, says I, a sailor's life is the life for me. And I'm derned if I'd live 2 mile out of town, where there ain't nothing ever going on. Not for all this spondylics, and as much more on top of it, says I. I broke in and says, they're an awful peck of trouble, and who is? Why, Pop and Mom and Sis, and Miss Hooker, and if I take your ferry boat and go up there, up where? Where are they? On the wreck. What wreck? Why, there ain't but one. What? You don't mean the Walter Scott? Yes. Good land. What are they doing there, for gracious sakes? Well, they didn't go there a purpose. I bet they didn't. Why, great goodness, there ain't no chance for 'em if they don't get off mighty quick. Why, how in the nation did they ever get into such a scrape? Easy enough. Miss Hooker was visiting up there to the town. Yes, Booth's Landing. Go on. She was visiting there at Booth's Landing, and just in the edge of the evening she started over with her women in the horse ferry to stay all night at her friend's house. Miss what you may call her, I just remember her name. And they lost their steering oar and swung around and went floating down stern first about 2 mile and saddlebags on the wreck. And the ferryman and the woman and the horses was all lost. But Miss Hooker, she made a grab and got aboard the wreck. Well, about an hour after dark, we came along down in our trading scow. And it was so dark we didn't notice the wreck till we was right on it, and so we saddlebags all but all of us was saved, but Bill Whipple and oh, he was the best greeter. I most wish it had been me, I do. My George, it's the beatenest thing I've ever struck. And then what did you all do? Well, we hollered and took on, but it's so wide there couldn't make nobody hear. So Pop said somebody got to get ashore and get help somehow. I was the best one that could swim, so I made a dash for it. And Miss Hooker said if I didn't strike help sooner, come here and hunt up her uncle and he'd fix the thing. I made the land about a mile below and been fooling around ever since, trying to get people to do something, but they said, what in such a night and such a current? There ain't no sense in it. Go for the steam ferry. Now if you go and buy Jackson, I'd like to, and blame it, I don't know how. No, but I don't know, but I will. But who in the dignations are going to pay for it? Do you reckon your pop? Why, that's all right, Miss Hooker, she told me particular that her Uncle Hornback, great guns, is he her uncle? Looky here, you break for that light over yonder away and turn out west when you get there. And about a quarter of a mile out you'll come to the tavern. Tell 'em to dart out the Jim Hornbacks and he'll foot the bill. And don't you fool around any, because he'll know the news. Tell him I have his niece all safe before he can get to town. Hump himself now. I'm a going up around the corner here to roust out my engineer. I struck for the light, but as soon as he turned the corner I went back and got into my skiff and bailed her out, and then pulled up shore in the easy water about 600 yards, and tucked myself in among some wood boats, for I couldn't rest easy till I could see the ferry boat start. But take it all around, I was feeling rather comfortable on account of taking all this trouble for that gang, for not many would have done it. I wished the widow knowed about it. I judged she would be proud of me for helping these rapscallions, because rapscallions and deadbeats is the kind the widow and good people take the most interest in. Well, before long here comes the wreck, dim and dusky, sliding along down, a kind of cold shivering through me, and then I struck out for her. She was very deep, and I see in a minute there weren't much chance for anybody being alive in her. I pulled all around her and hollered a little, but there wasn't any answer. All dead still. I felt a little bit heavy-hearted about the gang, but not much, for I reckoned if they could stand it, I could. Then here comes the ferry boat, so I shoved for the middle of the river on a long downstream slant, and when I judged I was out of eye reach, I laid on my oars, and looked back and see her go and smell around the wreck for Miss Hooker's remainders, because the captain would know her uncle Hornback would want them, and then pretty soon the ferry boat gave it up and went for the shore, and I laid into my work and went a booming down the river. It did seem a powerful long time before Jim's light showed up, and when it did show, it looked like it was 1,000 miles off. By the time I got there, the sky was beginning to get a little grey in the east, so we struck for an island. He hid the raft and sunk the skiff, and turned in and slept like dead people. Chapter 14. By and by, when we got up, we turned over the truck the gang had stole off the wreck, and found boots and blankets and clothes and all sorts of other things and a lot of books and a spyglass and 3 boxes of cigars. I hadn't ever seen this rich before in neither of our lives. The cigars was prime. We laid off all the afternoon in the woods talking and me reading the books and having a general good time. I told Jim all about what happened inside the wreck and at the ferry boat, and I said these kinds of things was adventures, but he said he didn't want no more adventures. He said that when I went in the Texas and he crawled back to get the raft and found her gone, he nearly died because he judged it was all up with him anyway. It could be fixed, for if he didn't get saved, he would get drowned. And if he did get saved, whoever saved him would send him back home so as to get the reward, and then Miss Watson would sell him south for sure. Well, he was right. He was most always right. He had an uncommon level head for a man. I read considerable to Jim about kings and dukes and earls and such, and how gaudy they dressed, and how much style they put on, and called each other Majesty and Your Grace, and Your Lordship, and so on, instead of Mister, and Jim's eyes bugged out, and he was interested. He says, I didn't know there was so many on 'em. I hain't heard 'bout none of 'em, scarcely but old King Solomon, unless you counts them kings das in the backer keerds. How much do a king get? Get, I says. Why, they get $1,000 a month if they want it, and they have just as much as they want. Everything belongs to them. Ain't that gay? And what they got to do, Huck? They don't do nothing. Why do you talk? Why, how do you talk? They just sit around. No, is that so? Of course it is. They just sit around, except maybe when there's a war, and then they go to the war, but other times they just lazy around, or go hawking, and you hear a noise? We skipped out and looked, but it weren't nothing but a flutter of a steamboat's wheel away down, coming around the point, so we came back. Yes, says I, and other times when things is dull, they fuss with the parliament, and everybody that go just so he whacks their heads off, but mostly they hang around the harem. Round the which? Harem. What's the harem? The place where they keeps his wives. Don't you know about the harem? Solomon had one. He had about 1,000,000 wives. Why, yes, that's so. I done forgot it. A harem's a boarding house, I reckon. Most likely they has rackety times in the nursery, and I reckon their wives quarrels considerable, and that crease the racket. Yet they Solomon the wisest man that ever lived. I don't take no stock in that, because why? Would a wise man want to live with the midser such a blimmin' all the time? No, deedy wouldn't. A wise man would take and build a boiler factory, and then he could get shut down the boiler factory and then want to rest. Well, but he was the wisest man anyway, because the widow she told me so her own self, and don't care what the widows say. He weren't no wise man nother. He had some other dead fetches which ways I ever see. Does you know about that child that he goes weighing in chopping too? Yes, the widow told me all about it. Well then, weren't that the beanest nation in the world? You just take and look a minute. That's the stump there. That's one of the women. Here's you. That's the other one. A Solomon and there's your dollar bills the child. Both on you claims it. What does I do? Does I shun round amongst the neighbors and find out which and you bill do belong to, and hang it over to the right one, all safe and sound, the way anybody that had any gumption would? No, I take and whack the bill in two, then give half on it to you and the yonner half to the other woman. That's the way Solomon was gonna do it with the child. Now I want to ask you, what's the use of that half a bill? Can't buy nothing with it. And what use is half a child? We wouldn't give him dern for a million and none. But hang it, Jim, you've clean missed the point. Blame it, you've missed it 1,000 mile. Who, me? Go along. Don't talk to me about your prince. I reckon I know sense when I sees it. And there ain't no sense in such doin' as that. Dispute warn't about half a child. Dispute was about a whole child, and the man that think he can settle disputes about a whole child with a half a child doin' know enough to come in out the rain. Don't talk to me about Solomon Huck. I knows him by the back. But I tell you don't get the point. Blame the point. I reckon I knows what I knows. And mind you, the real point is down further. It's down deeper. It lays in the way Solomon was raised. You take a man that's got only one or two children, and that man going to be wasteful of children. He ain't no. No, he ain't. He can't afford it. He know how to value 'em. But you take a man that's got about 5 million children run around the house, and it's different. He as soon as chop a child in two as a cat. There's plenty of mo, a chiller, two more or less. One no reckons to Solomon, da fetch him. I never see such a man. If he got a notion in his head once, there warn't no getting it out again. He was the most down on Solomon of any man I ever see. So I went to talking about other kings and let Solomon slide. I told about Louis XVI that got his head cut off in France long time ago, and about his little boy, the Dauphin, that would have been a king, but they took and shut him up in jail, and some say he died there. Poor little chap. But some says he got out and got away and come to America. That's good, but he'll be pretty lonesome. There ain't no kings here, is there, Huck? No? Then he ain't no situation. What he gonna do? Well, I don't know. Some of them gets on the police and some of them learns people how to talk French. Why, Huck, don't they French people talk the same way he does? The same way we does? No, Jim, you couldn't understand a word they said, not a single word. Well, no, I'd be dang busted. How do that come? I don't know, but it's so. I got some of their jabber out of a book. Suppose a man was to come to you and say, Poulier Français, what would you think? I wouldn't think nothing. I'd take him, bust him over the head. That's if he weren't white. I wouldn't low no black man to call me that. Shucks, it ain't calling you anything. It's only saying, do you know how to talk French? Well then, why couldn't he say it? Why, he is a saying it. That's the French's way of saying it. Well, it's a blame ridiculous way, and I don't want to hear no more about it. There ain't no sense in it. Looky here, Jim. Does a cat talk like we do? No, a cat don't. Well, does a cow? No, a cow don't neither. Does a cat talk like a cow or a cow like a cat? No, they don't. It's natural and right for them to talk different to each other, ain't it? Course. And ain't it natural and right for a cat and cow to talk different from us? Why, most surely it is. Well then, why ain't it natural and right for a Frenchman to talk different from us? You answer me that. Is a cat a Frenchman, Huck? No. Well then there ain't no sense in a cat talking like a man. Is a cow a man? Or is a cow a cat? No, she ain't either of them. Well then she ain't no business to talk like either one of the other 'em. Is a Frenchman a man? Yes. Well then, dad blame it. Why don't they talk like a man? You answer me that. I see it won't no use wasting words. You can't learn a man to talk, a man to argue, so I quit. Chapter 15. We judged that there was 3 nights more would fetch us to Cairo at the bottom of Illinois, where the Ohio River comes in, and that was what we was after. We would sell the raft and get on a steamboat and go way up the Ohio amongst the free states and then be out of trouble. Well, the second night and a fog began to come on and we made for a towhead to tie to, for it wouldn't do to try to run in a fog. But when I paddled ahead in the canoe with the line to make fast, there weren't anything but little saplings to tie it to. I passed the line around one of them, right on the edge of the cut bank, and there was a stiff current, and the raft came booming down so lively she tore out by the roots and away she went. I seen the fog closing down, and it made me so sick and scared I couldn't budge for most a half a minute, it seemed to me, and then there wa'n't no raft in sight. You couldn't see 20 yards. I jumped into the canoe and ran back to the stern and grabbed the paddle and set her back a stroke. But she didn't come. I was in such a hurry I hadn't untied her. I got up and tried to untie her, but I was so excited my hands shook, and I couldn't hardly do anything with them. As soon as I got started, I took out after the raft, hot and heavy, right down the towhead. That was all right as far as it went, but but the towhead was 60 yards long, and the minute I flew by the foot of it, I shot out into the solid white fog, and hadn't no more idea which way I was going than a dead man. Thinks I, it won't do to paddle. First I know I'll run into the bank or a towhead or something. I gotta sit still and float, and yet it's mighty fidgety business to have to hold your hands still at such a time. I whooped and listened. Away down there somewheres I hears a small whoop, and up comes my spirits. I went tearing after it, listening shocked to hear it again. The next time it come, I see I weren't heading for it, but heading away to the right of it, and at the next time I was heading away to the left of it, and not gaining on it much either, for I was flying around this way and that and the other, but it was going straight ahead all the time. I did wish the fool would think to beat a tin pan and beat it all the time, but he never did. And it was the still places between the whoops that was making the trouble for me. While I fought along, and directly I hears the whoop behind me. I was tangled good now. That was somebody else's whoop, or else I was turned around. I throwed the paddle down. I heard the whoop again. It was behind me yet, but the different place. And I kept on saying, oh dear. I kept answering till by and by it was in front of me again, and I knowed the current had swung the canoe's head downstream, and I was alright if that was Jim and not some other raftsman hollering. I couldn't tell nothing about voices in a fog, for nothing don't look natural nor sound natural in a fog. The whooping went on, and oh dear, there's a spider. And I was all right if that was Jim and not some other raftsman hollering. I couldn't tell nothing about voices in a fog, for nothing don't look natural nor sound natural in a fog. The whooping went on, and in about a minute I come a booming down on a cut bank with the smoky ghosts of big trees on it, and the current throwed me off to the left and shot by, amongst a lot of snags that fairly roared. The current was tearing down by them so swift. In another second or two it was solid white and still again. I sat perfectly still then, listening to my heart thump, and I reckon it didn't draw a breath while I thumped while it thumped 100. I just gave up then. I knowed what the matter was. The cut bank was an island, and Jim had gone down the other side of it. It weren't no towhead that you could float by in 10 minutes. It had a big timber of a regular island. It might be 5 or 6 miles long, and more than half a mile wide. I kept quiet with my ears cocked, and 15 minutes, I reckon, I was floating along, of course, 4 or 5 miles an hour. But don't ever think of that. Now you feel like you're laying dead still on the water, and if a little glimpse of a snag slips by and you don't think to yourself how fast you're going by, but you catch your breath and think, my, how that snag's tearing along. If you think it ain't dismal and lonesome out in a fog that way by yourself in the night, you try it once, you'll see. Next, for about half an hour, I whoops now and then. At least I hears the answer a long ways off and tries to follow it, but I couldn't do it, and directly I judged I'd got into a nest of towheads, for I had little dim glimpses of them on both sides of me, sometimes just a narrow channel between, and some that I couldn't see, so I know that was there because I hear the wash of the current against the old dead brush and trash that hung over the banks. Well, I weren't long losing the whoops down amongst the towheads, and I only tried to chase them a little while, anyway, because it was worse than chasing a jack-o'-lantern. You never know the sound dodged around so and swap places so quick and so much. I had to claw away from the bank pretty lively 4 or 5 times to keep from knocking the islands out of the river. And so I judged the raft must be butting into the bank every now and then, or else it would get further ahead and clear out of the hearing. It was floating a little faster than what I was. Well, it seemed to be in the open river again by and by, but I couldn't hear no sign of any whoop nowheres. I reckon Jim had fetched up on a snag, maybe, and it was all up with him. I was good and tired, so I laid down in the canoe and said I wouldn't bother no more. I didn't want to go to sleep, of course, but I was so sleepy, excuse me, I couldn't help it, so I thought I would take just a one little cat nap. But I reckon it was more than a cat nap, for when I waked up, the stars were shining bright. The fog was all gone, and I was spinning down a big bend and stern first. First, I didn't know where I was. I thought I was dreaming, and when things began to come back to me, they seemed to come up dim out of last week. It was a monstrous big river here, with the tallest and the thickest kind of timber on both banks, just a solid wall as well as I could see by the stars. I looked away downstream and seen a black speck on the water. I took after it, but when I got to it, it weren't nothing but a couple of saw logs made fast together. And then I see another speck and chased that, then another, and this time I was right. It was the raft. But when I got to Jim, it was sitting there with his head down between his knees, asleep, with his right arm hanging over the steering oar. So the other oar was smashed off, and the raft was littered up with leaves and branches and dirt. So she'd had a rough time. I made fast and lay down under Jim's nose on the raft, and began to gap and stretch my fist out against him, and said, "Hello, Jim. Have I been asleep? Why didn't you stir me up? Goodness gracious, is that you, Huck? And you ain't dead? You ain't drownded? You's back again. It's a too good for true, honey. It's too good for true. Let me look at you, child. Let me feel you. No, you ain't dead. You's back again, alive and sound. Just the same old Huck. The same old Huck, thanks to goodness. What's the matter with you, Jim? Have you been drinking?" "Drinking? Has I been drinking? Has I had a chance to be drinking? Well then, what makes you talk so wild?" "How does I talk wild? How? Why ain't you been talking about my coming back and all that stuff as I'd been gone away? Huck, Huck Finn, you look me in the eye. Look me in the eye. Hain't you been gone away?" "Gone away? Why? What in the nation do you mean? I hain't been gone anywheres. Where would I go?" "Well, looky here, boss, they's somethin' wrong with days. Is it me or who's I? Is it here or what is I? Now that's what I wants to know." "Well, I think you've been here again, plain enough. But I think you're a tangle-headed old fool, Jim." "I is? I is? Well, you answer me this. Didn't you tote out the line in the canoe for to make us fast down the bowhead?" "No, I didn't." "What towhead? I hain't seen no towhead." "You ain't seen no towhead? Looky here, didn't the line pull loose and the raft go a hummin' down the river, leave you and the canoe behind me in the fog?" "What fog?" "Why, the fog that's been up all night. And didn't you whoop and I didn't whoop and tell me we got mixed up in the islands and one of us got loose and the other one was just as good loose, case I didn't know where we was? And didn't I bust up again and lauder them islands and have a trouble time and most get drownded? Now ain't that so, boss? Ain't it so?" "You answer me that." "Well, this is too many for me, Jim. I ain't seen no fog, nor no islands, nor no troubles, nor nothing. I've been sitting here talking with you all night till you went to sleep about 10 minutes ago, and I reckon I done the same. You couldn't got drunk in that time, so of course you've been dreaming. Dad fetch it, how was I going to dream all that in 10 minutes?" I could have drowned it. Well, hang it all. You did dream it because there didn't any of it happen. But how it's all just plain to me as I don't make no difference how plain it is. There ain't nothing in it. I know because I've been here all the time. Jim didn't say nothing for about 5 minutes, but sat there studying over it. Then he says, well then, I reckon I did dream it, Huck, but dogs my cats if I ain't the powerfulest dream I ever have. And I ain't ever had no dream before that tired me like this one. Well, that's alright because a dream does tire a body like everything sometimes. But this one was a staving dream. Tell me all about it, Jim. This boy. Oh, thank you. Oh, so Jim went to work and told me the whole thing right through, just as it happened, only he painted it up considerable. Of course. Then he said he must start interpret it because it was sent for a warning. He said the first towhead stood for a man that would try to do us some good, but the current was another man. Excuse me. That would get us away from him. The whoops was warning that would come to us every now and then, and if we didn't try hard to make out so to understand them, they didn't. They'd just take us into bad luck. Instead of keeping us out of it, a lot of towheads was troubles we was going to get into with quarrelsome people and all kinds of mean folk. But if we minded our business and didn't talk back and aggravate them, we would pull through and get out of the fog and into the big clear river, which was the Free States, and wouldn't have no more trouble. It had clouded up pretty dark just after I got onto the raft, but it was clearing up again now. Oh well, that's all interpreted well enough as far as it goes, Jim, I says. But what does these things stand for? I it was the leaves and rubbish on the raft that is and the smashed ore. You couldn't see them first rate now. Jim looked at the trash and then looked at me and back at the trash again. He had got the dream fixed so strong in his head that he couldn't seem to shake it loose and get the facts back into place again right away. But when he did get this thing straightened around, he looked at me steady without ever smiling and says, what do they stand for? I was gonna tell you. When I got too wore out with work and with a call in you and went to sleep, my heart was most broke because you was lost. I didn't care no more what became of me and the raft. And when I wake up and find you back again, all safe and sound, the tears coming, I could got down on my knees and kiss your foot. It's so thankful. I so thankful. And all you was thinking about was how could you make a fool of old Jim with a lie? That truck, that trash. And trash is what people is that puts dirt on the head of their friends and make 'em ashamed. Then he got up slow and walked to the wigwam and went in there without saying anything but that. But that was enough. It made me feel so mean I could almost kiss his foot and get him to take it back. It was 15 minutes before I could work myself up to go and humble myself to the man, but I done it, and I weren't ever sorry for it afterwards neither. I didn't do him no more mean tricks, and I wouldn't done that if I knowed it you would make him feel that way. Chapter 16. We slept most all day and started out at night. We slept most all day and started out at night a little ways behind a monstrous long raft that was as long going as a spy as a procession. She had 4 long sweeps at each end, so we judged she carried as many as 30 men likely. She had big wigwams aboard, wide apart, and an open campfire in the middle, and a tall flagpole at each end. There was a power of style about it. It amounted to something, being a raftsman on such a craft as that. We went drifting down into a big bend, and the night clouded up and got hot. The river was very wide, and was walled with solid timber on both sides. I couldn't see a break in it hardly ever, or a light. We talked about Cairo and wondered whether we would know when we got to it. I said likely we wouldn't, because I had heard they say there weren't but a dozen houses there if they didn't happen to have them lit up. How was we going to know we was passing a town? Jim said if the two big rivers joined together there, that would show. But I said maybe we might think we was passing the foot of an island and coming into the same old river again. That disturbed Jim and me too. So the question was what to do. I said paddle ashore the first time a light showed, and then Pop was behind, along coming along with trading scow, and was a green hand at business and wanted to know how far it was to Cairo. Jim thought it was a good idea, so we took a smoke on it and waited. There warn't nothing to do now but to look out sharp for the town, and not pass it without seeing it, he said. He'd be mighty sure to see it because it'd be a free man the minute he seen it. But if he missed it, he'd be in a slave country again and no more show for freedom. Every little while he jumps up and says, "There she is," but it won't. It was jack-o'-lanterns for lighting bugs, so we sat down again. and went to watching same as before. Jim said it made him all over trembly and feverish to be so close to freedom. Well, I can tell you it made me all over trembly and feverish too to hear him, because I began to get it through my head that he was most free, and who was to blame for it? Why, me. I couldn't get that out of my conscience, no, how nor why. It got to troubling me so I couldn't rest. I couldn't stay still in one place. I hadn't ever come home to me before, but this thing was what I was doing. But now it did, and it stayed with me and scorched me more and more. I tried to make it out to myself that I want to blame because I didn't run Jim off from his rightful owner, but it weren't no use. Conscience up and says every time. But you knowed he was running for his freedom, and you could paddled ashore and told somebody. That was so. I couldn't get around that no way. That was where it pinched. Conscience was says to me, what had poor Miss Watson done to you that you could see her servant go off right under your eyes and never say one single word? What did that poor old woman do to you that you could treat her so mean? Why, she tried to learn you your book. You tried to learn you your She tried to learn you your manners. She tried to be good to you every way she knew how. That's what she done. I got to feeling so mean and so miserable I most wish I was dead. I fidgeted up and down the raft, abusing myself to myself, and Jim was fidgeting up and down past me. We neither of us could keep still. Every time he danced around and says, "Does Cairo?" it went through me like a shot, and I thought if it was Cairo, I reckoned I would die of miserableness. Jim talked out loud all the time while I was talking to myself. He was saying how the first thing he would do when he got to a free state, he would go to saving up money and never spend a single cent. And when he got enough, he would buy his wife, which was owned from a farm close to where Miss Watson lived, and then they would both work to buy the two children. If their master wouldn't sell them, they'd get an abolitionist to go and steal them. Abolitionist. It most froze me to hear such talk. He wouldn't ever dare to talk such things in his life before. Just to see what a difference it made in him the minute he judged he was about free. It was according to the old saying, give a man an inch and you'll take an ell. Thinks I, this was what comes of my not thinking. Here was a servant which I had as good as helped to run away, coming right now out flat-footed and saying he would steal his children, children that belonged to a man I didn't even know, a man that hadn't ever done me no harm. I was sorry to hear Jim say that. It was such a lowering of him. My conscience got to stirring me up harder than ever until at last I says to it, let it upon me. It ain't too late yet. I'll paddle ashore at the first light and tell. I felt easy and happy and light as a feather right off. All my troubles was gone. I went to looking out sharp for a light, and sort of singing to myself. By and by one showed. Jim sings out, "We's safe, Huck, we's safe. Jump up and whack your heels. That's the good old Cairo at last. I just know it." I says, "I'll take the canoe and go and see. It might be. He jumped up and got the canoe ready and put his old coat in the bottom for me to sit on and give me the paddle. And as I shoved off, he says, "Pretty soon I'll be a shouting for joy and I'll say it's all accounts a hug, as I's a free man, and I couldn't ever been free if it hadn't been for Huck. Huck, you done it. Jim won't ever forget you, Huck. You's the best friend Jim's ever had, and you's the only friend old Jim's got now." Thank you that we could sit together. I appreciate it. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I know that it's going to be okay, and if it's not, at least you're not alone anymore, and for that I'm proud of you. If you need me again, I'll be back soon. Good night. Thank you. Same to you.